Hi, Lexi Daly here with this week's episode of Make It Monday for Paper Tray Ink. Today we're going to be making focal clusters.
So let me start by showing you a few cards that inspired today's video. Something I really like doing is combining images and stamps together into what I'm calling a focal cluster. I kind of play with them a little bit and see how they would fit together, almost like a puzzle. It's kind of like a streamlined collage of sorts as well. But I play with different things, see what kind of shapes I can get. Like here I got a nice curve and I fit the spoon in, and it left a good space also for a sentiment to go up. But what I'm looking for when I play around with my stamps like this is that a tight grouping of elements that create one visual image. So let me show you some other examples. This one is stacked, maybe a little less collage looking, but they were all of similar widths. So we have the ice cream, the sentiment, and the spoon, but together they create one larger element. Here, these are mostly die cuts and a cutout piece of a stamped image, but the hello is overlapping both the arrow and the rattle, and I left the perfect space for baby to tuck in, so it's this cohesive all together focal cluster. Same thing here with Peace on Earth, a very simple sentiment again, but things are overlapping and touching, and the hand is grounded onto this strip so that it's one focal cluster. So let me show you a little bit about the process that I go through. So it depends on my purpose for stamping, but if I'm just get a new set, that's when I do this the most. I will take out, or if I'm just interested in exploring, I will take out the sets that I'm going to use. And so here I'm using Zappy Birthday and Superhero. And when I first did it to prepare for this, I took out lots of the stamps, but before I put them on blocks, I like to play with the stamps themselves. So let's get the ones I used for the card that I'm going to be making, and I'll put the rest aside. Like I said, the first time I was in preparing, I took out a lot more, and I do this process like moving things around and seeing how they look. It's kind of my first step before actually stamping anything down. So I just kind of, see how things fit together. And here I just kind of notice the curve of his arm and the curve of the sound effects bubble. And then there's kind of like a little bit of space here. So I just kind of play with putting them together. Oh, that's upside down. Still works. So I play with putting them together and seeing how I feel about how they look. And I might have several of these built all over my paper as I'm working with it. This would obviously go inside of the sound effects. And once I know what I'm thinking and what I want to stamp, I'll go ahead and get my stamps put on the blocks, and then I'll start stamping. The next step that I do, and I've already done it earlier, is to stamp out some of those clusters that I built. So I took the time to build them, play with them like a puzzle, very hands-on, and then I stamped them out. And so here's the one that I was just working on, and here are a couple others that you will see a little later in the video. And here's one where they're similar, and I was trying out different things. I ended up not liking this on there, and I actually didn't use this layout. I used this one. So we'll come back to these a little later, but I'm going to leave them here, and that's one of the reasons why I like a paper pad below where I'm working, because I will try different color combinations, I'll try different layouts, and then I just rip it off and throw it away and start over the next time. I'm going to leave it here, and we're going to go ahead and stamp today's card following this cluster example. I'm starting with a full card front size piece of cardstock. It could be smaller. I know I'm going to be cutting it down a little bit, but I always like it to be slightly bigger than what I think I'm going to want it to be in the end, because then I can have much better spacing around where I stamped, and I can, you know, have a little more leeway in what I'm going to do with the piece after. So that's just another little thing that I do. I'm going to start by building up from the bottom. So we're going to start with the base sentiment. Hope your day is action-packed, in blue. And again, I'm giving myself a little bit of room that I can trim off at the end, knowing that it's probably going to, my edge of the paper is probably going to be closer to that. The next thing I need to do is add the superhero. He's right over the words day and is. I'll also point out that sometimes I might, on my sample, on my scratch pad, I might have a little more space, and this is, I just take the time to adjust it as I'm working. Or sometimes I might do it a couple of times on here if I'm unsure, but that didn't happen this time. So let me line that up over day and is. And next we'll do our sound effects bubble. We'll start with the red frame. And I'm going to, like I did over here, I'm going to kind of follow the curve of his arm and then tuck it right in. And it's okay if it touches what you're doing. I mean, it is collage style, so you can have a little bit of leeway with, you know, a little bit of overlap if you want. And then I'm going to fill it in with the gray. Let me get the orientation correct here. All right. And I will hover and stamp it in place. And then finally, I'm back to blue. Normally I do everything in the same color first, but when you're building a collage, you have to go in order to get everything in the right place, really. So Zappy Birthday is last. And so here we have basically our finished piece, and now we can trim it down to create the card. And there you have it, the finished card. Here's another example that I created, very similar colors, similar layout style, a few more sentiments, and I built it based on this one. Another thing I forgot to say is I usually just use one color on my notepad because then I can quickly stamp out a bunch of things. And then I decide on my colors when I go to stamp the real thing. And sometimes I might do a few examples of that on the side. But when I'm first laying everything out, I just use one color. But here similar card, different layout. You'll notice that I went ahead and added in a mask here. So while I really liked this, when I was coming down to color, I decided I needed another pop of red. So I moved this here, which gave me the perfect space to add in a mask. And then a few more stars, just like the first card. And then last, I did this one. So you're not limited. I mean, I tend to go to clean and simple styles like this, but this is not just for clean and simple, although it lends itself well to it. Lots of white space and simple layering. You can also use it in a more detailed card, a card that's a little more involved. So here I cut my element out more closely, and I created kind of a comic book look by adding another element off the page and a die cut to kind of balance the black. So here's my main focal cluster, but it's balanced with everything else that works on the card. So you can, and that was this setup right here. So you can use them for something simple and maybe something a little less simple. But it's a fun kind of challenging technique. It helped, little puzzle piecing is fun to put things together and just see how some of the images work to create colorful focal clusters.
Now it's your turn. You can head over to Nicole Huddy's blog to find more information about how to play along and link up. I can't wait to see what you create. This has been Lexi Daly for Paper Tray Inc.'s Make It Monday. Bye!